Carlos Sainz catches fire before the race even starts, Max Verstappen gets taken out on lap 1 by Kimi Antonelli, the other Red Bull of Yuki Tsunoda finishes dead last, and McLaren 1-2 and the first points for Gabriel Bortoleto. What an incredible race we have just witnessed. So let's discuss what on earth happened at the Austrian Grand Prix. So I suppose we need to start before the race has even begun, with Carlos Sainz catching fire on the formation lap. I'm not sure if Williams have released exactly what happened, but Carlos was saying on the radio that his car was stuck in first gear and wouldn't get off the line, and then when it eventually did get off the line, he had to come to start in the pit, and then his brakes caught fire, and as a result of this, he wasn't able to start the race, which is a real shame because Carlos has had some really bad luck this year at Williams, and I think that most people expected Carlos to come in and kind of be the #1 driver at Williams, and while I still do think that Carlos is probably the better overall driver, Alex is doing a really good job this year. But saying that, Alex didn't really get much in the way of good luck, either having a mechanical failure of his own. So it's just going to be a weekend to forget for the Williams team. But this could have huge implications come the end of the year, with that midfield battle being so close and Williams not scoring any points again. So from a weekend to forget to a weekend to remember for the Sauber team. I'm so happy for Gabby Bortoleto. I rate this guy so highly. Formula 3 champion, Formula 2 champion, and then he gets put in a pretty bad car and isn't really able to show what he's capable of. But this weekend he did a fantastic job in qualifying and a fantastic job in the race as well, and he's finally able to show what he can do behind the wheel of a Formula 1 car, so I'm really happy for him. And for Hulkenberg as well, picking up 2 points for his P9 finish. A great race from Hulkenberg, and it was a pretty good recovery drive too for Hulkenberg. It wasn't the best qualifying that he had, so coming back to P9 was pretty respectable. Another team that's going to want to forget this weekend very quickly is Alpine. Despite qualifying in the top 10, Pierre Gasly drops down to 13th place in the race, and a pretty awful weekend for Franco Colapinto. Not only did he get spun around by Yuki Tsunoda, he also picked up a 5-second penalty himself for pushing Oscar Piastri out onto the grass. In fairness, Colapinto said that he just didn't know that he was there. I don't know if he maybe didn't get the radio message or he didn't notice there were blue flags out, but it's not really an excuse. When you've got a driver that's fighting for the lead of the race coming up behind you and you push them onto the grass, it's a bit amateur from Colapinto, and especially considering the rumours that this is Colapinto's last contracted race at Alpine. I'm not saying that Alpine are now going to suddenly replace him and put somebody else in the car. I honestly don't know who they would put in there at this point. I mean, probably not Paul Aaron, but I can't imagine it's going to be very fun to have to go and face Flavio after this. But I do very highly rate Colapinto, so I'm sure we will see him in the car at Silverstone as well. Now moving on to a driver who's had a very good comeback, and that is Liam Lawson. As you guys know, I am a big supporter of Liam Lawson, and I was really disappointed with the start that he had to this season. Obviously that Red Bull car just did not suit him at all, much like it's not suiting Yuki Tsunoda at the moment. This has to be Liam's best race this year, a fantastic haul of points for the B-Carb team. It's a shame that Isaac Hadjar coming back in P12 not been able to pick up any points, but Isaac's been picking up points at most races this year, so that's not really an issue. But this has got to be a huge confidence boost for Liam Lawson. A lot of people were completely writing Liam off after the first 2 races this season, and I do get where they're coming from, but of course we all know the problems that second Red Bull seat faces. And speaking of Red Bull, what a horrible home race it was for them. First of all, the incident between Kimi Antonelli and Max Verstappen. Obviously it was 100% Kimi's fault, and he did go to apologise to Max in the Red Bull hospitality afterwards, which is really nice, and it just looked like a rookie error from a rookie driver. So I don't think there's too much to unpack there. I think he just went in a bit too hot, locked up his brakes and took Max out. I think Hadjar was also involved in this. He had to pit on lap 1 too, so that kind of explains why he had such a bad race. Well, not a bad race, but not point scoring race. But again, that second Red Bull seat, we have to talk about it. Yuki Tsunoda was absolutely nowhere today, finishing the race dead last and getting a 10-second time penalty for spinning around Franco Colapinto at turn 4. As for the incident, I think it is a pretty standard one. Driver on the outside of turn 4 at Austria, driver on the inside. It's the same thing. We've seen this 100 times before. But Yuki's pace just seemed to be absolutely nowhere today. He was being overtaken on pure pace by cars like Alpines, Hasses, Saubers. I honestly feel like if Max Verstappen wasn't at Red Bull, we would just consider Red Bull as like a backmarker team at this point. So it was a real shame that Red Bull's home race really didn't go to plan, and Max couldn't get his final lap in qualifying done because of Pierre Gasly spinning, and he did do his first run on used tyres, so he really should have qualified a lot higher than 7th, but because of circumstances out of Max's control, he wasn't able to. So a real shame for Red Bull at their home race. Now moving on to Mercedes. Obviously we've already discussed Kimi and Antonelli, there's not too much more to say on this, but I think Antonelli maybe could have done a bit of a better job in qualifying. He was out-qualified by some cars that he maybe shouldn't have been, the likes of Bortoleto and Lawson, for example. So if he was a bit higher up the field, maybe he wouldn't have made this move, and then could have still had a points finish today. As for George Russell, I thought he did about as best as he could today. That Mercedes just does not work when it's hot. And looking at the results, a P5 for George doesn't seem too bad until you realise he was 62 seconds off the race win. And because Austria is such a short lap times there are what, 1 minute 4 in qualifying? So the fact that he's 1 minute 2 seconds off the lead, he's almost a lap down in P5. But I think that George did maximise what he could have done today. He was about 30 seconds off the back of Lewis Hamilton in the Ferrari. So it's a shame for George winning last time out in Canada than being over a minute off the lead in today's race. But like I said, this is probably about as good as Mercedes could have hoped for today. Very quickly before we get into the next team, make sure you drop a subscribe to the channel. There has been a bit of a gap with content on the channel now, so I do apologise for that. I have just moved from Australia back to the UK, so my whole life is out of the suitcase at the moment, so everything's a bit chaotic. But I'm back now, and we're going to be on a regular weekly upload schedule. So make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out on any of the content on the channel. As for Ferrari, again, about as well as they could have hoped for. Charles Leclerc obviously picking up that podium in P3, but again, he was 20 seconds off the back of the McLarens. The McLarens are so fast this year. I did say before the race that I thought there was a slight chance that Charles could have maybe gotten ahead of both McLarens at the start and then maybe kept the lead, but honestly the McLarens looked rapid today. There was no chance. Even if he did get ahead, Charles was not going to win today. But still a pretty decent job from both Ferrari drivers. Lewis finished about 10 seconds off the back of Charles, which is maybe slightly concerning. There was quite a funny interaction as well between Lewis and his race engineer, where his engineer was telling Lewis to box and he was asking why, and he was told to box, and he asked why and he was just told to box. I do think that Ferrari should maybe look at getting a different engineer for Lewis. They just seem to really struggle to communicate. I'm not sure if it's like a language barrier thing or what, but they just never seem, they just don't gel the way that Lewis and Bono did. I'm not saying they need to poach Bono or anything, but every time we hear a radio message between these two, it's always a bit contentious. Now moving on to Haas. I probably should have done these in order, but this is just a completely random order, honestly. But P10 for Ocon and P11 for Behrman is pretty decent, honestly. But for these teams at the tail end of the points in the midfield, even a single point can make a big difference come the end of the year. So Ocon picking up that 1 point for P10 is fantastic for them, especially when Alpine and Williams scored no points. A shame for Behrman to be just outside of the points like he was last time out in Canada, but considering that he is the rookie and Ocon is the veteran driver, this is sort of what you would expect. As for Aston Martin, Fernando Alonso did a fantastic job getting that P7 finish. Lance Stroll was pretty anonymous in this race, as he is quite often, finishing all the way down in 14th place. But like I said for Haas, as long as one of the drivers in the team is scoring points, that's fantastic for the constructors. So Alonso picking up P7 is a decent haul of points for a midfield team. And finally, let's talk about the race winners McLaren. A fantastic 1-2 finish. In qualifying yesterday, Lando put half a second on the field. And I know, yes, there was some extenuating circumstances, but that was still a mega lap from Lando. And honestly, he led Q1, he led Q2, he led Q3, he led FP2 and FP3, the only practice sessions he took part in, and he won the race. So this was honestly just a bit of a clean sweep for Lando. And this is exactly what he needed after Canada. It's going to be a big confidence boost for him. And I think that Lando really is a driver that thrives on confidence. When Lando isn't feeling confident, he doesn't drive well. And with Silverstone being his home race next week, he really needed to bounce back. And that's exactly what he did. But there were points in that race where I really thought that Oscar was going to get past. Obviously, there was that very scary moment where Oscar locked up into turn 4 and almost took them both out of the race. But thankfully, they didn't come together and they were both able to finish. But McLaren are just looking scary fast. What a dominant performance from both drivers today. They were nearly a whole pit stop ahead of P3. This is like what we've been seeing from Max Verstappen in recent years, where he just drives off into the sunset every single race. And if McLaren can keep up this form, there's no way anyone's going to catch them. Max Verstappen is now 61 points behind the championship leader. So while you should never really count Max Verstappen out, I think we can start to talk about Max Verstappen not being a title contender this year. As for Lando Norris, he's only 15 points behind Oscar Piastri now. So if Lando can win next time out in Silverstone, even if Oscar Piastri came in P2, it would be such a close battle at the front. And this is exactly what we've been wanting for such a long time. Two teammates actually going together. We've not had this since, what, 2016 with Nico Rosberg and Lewis Hamilton? And thank God that McLaren let their drivers race. I really feel like most teams, after about 3 or 4 laps of Oscar being on the tail of Lando, would have just come on the radio to Oscar and said, hold position, let's just bring home this 1-2 finish. But McLaren don't want to play those games. And as for Oscar Piastri, did we start to see him crack a little bit under the pressure? If you haven't seen his post-qualifying radio message, he was quite animated and even swore on the radio, which is something we never see from Oscar. He was understandably very annoyed that his final lap was ruined by Pierre Gasly spinning. And after the race, he had some more colourful radio messages about Franco Colapinto pushing him onto the grass, which again is very understandable. But we all know Oscar. I've been following this kid since 2019. He is always super calm on the radio. So is this the slightest chink in his drama starting to show. Obviously, I still think that Oscar has a very calm head on his shoulders, and this was just a bit of an off weekend for him, considering how well he's done this year. But honestly, Oscar is still my favourite to win the championship. I just thought the radio messages were quite funny. As for my winner of the day, I'm going to be giving it to Gabby Bortoleto. He was also the official driver of the day, and he's getting my winner of the day too. What a fantastic, fantastic drive from the young Brazilian. As for my winner of the day, I'm sorry to say it's going to Yuki Tsunoda. Yes, we all know that there are issues with that Red Bull second seat, but he's finished 2 laps down in dead last at Red Bull's home race where Max Verstappen was probably going to fight for podium, let's be honest. And this was such a nice moment between Gabby Bortoleto and his manager Fernando Alonso after the race. Alonso congratulating him was so nice to see. I love that Fernando Alonso has taken these young drivers under his wing while he's still racing himself. What a fantastic thing he's doing. And I just know that Fernando loved that Bortoleto was trying to overtake him. I made a joke before that Fernando's trying to like make the whole grid under his management so he could just tell them all to get out of his way. But we all know Fernando Alonso, that's not what he would want his young drivers to be doing. He wants his drivers to race him hard. And a lot of people as well this year have been kind of writing off Fernando Alonso, saying that he's too old to be there, he needs to retire. He's showing up once again, proving exactly why he's one of the greatest racing drivers Formula 1 has ever had. So let me know your thoughts on the race in the comments. I thought it was a fantastic race. And Austria re-signing until 2041, especially when Formula 1 are getting rid of some of these iconic circuits like Imola and Spa going on rotation, locking in Austria was a great shout. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. I think this might be Sauber's lucky charm.